That Conor fight, Dave Feldman comes back here, says Conor comes up to him, says, I want that Jeremy Stephens fight next. So what are your thoughts there? You fighting the Irishman?
Oh, cocaine Conor.
All right, so another BKFC event took place this weekend, which means we have a new batch of clips where Conor McGregor is pretty clearly high on the good old Colombian marching powder, and I will be taking you through all this and more throughout this video. First, I want you guys to check out these clips from his closing statement of the BKFC pre-fight press conference.
Oh, Philly!
Sorry I'm late, I don't give a fuck. I'm the big boss around here. A local boy and former UFC lightweight world champion, former Bellator world champion. Shut this man up over here, Jeremy Stephens, who's coming in here into Philadelphia. He's coming in here to Philadelphia on this fighting, on this great sporting weekend, and I want every fighter on the card to know, and every fighter that's invited to this event to understand. You are the chosen ones. So, David, congrats on the success. I had a few Philly cheesesteaks. I gave a big shout out to the Eagles, a big game this weekend. So go Birds! Let's go! This is Philadelphia. This is a Philly type of weekend, baby. And we're kicking it off bare knuckle style.
Right off the bat, I want to point out just how red and flushed his face looks throughout this entire monologue. I don't know how many lines he railed backstage before getting in front of the cameras, but it was clearly enough for him to look like he was sitting out in the sun all day. Not only that, do you guys remember how well-spoken and smooth on the mic Conor used to be during his heyday? Lately, I've been noticing his ability to articulate his thoughts without stumbling over his words has gone down drastically, and dare I say it, this might be the worst I've heard him deliver a speech in terms of stuttering and stammering. He still has a strong sense of charisma and confidence that makes him a better presenter than most, but this version of McGregor is a far cry away in terms of his speaking skills than the Conor of old. And I'm sure that it's not just the coke that's made him less eloquent, but also the alcohol and who knows what else he's been doing, but the partying and the substances have clearly taken a toll on the guy both physically and mentally. And sure, of course, his bloated and red face is a concern, but what I really think is the biggest shame out of all of this is how his wit and speaking skills have fallen off of a cliff in the last few years. This guy used to have the sharpest tongue with the best delivery outside of Chael Sonnen, of course, but nowadays he sounds closer to Colby Covington with all the stuttering. And then as the fighters are getting ready to face off with each other, McGregor randomly starts getting really amped up and starts yelling at the crowd like he's Russell Crowe in Gladiator.
Bros on! Let's go! Let's go, baby! Let's go!
Then out of nowhere, he starts bringing out an endless supply of his forged Irish stout and gives them to the fans. Then immediately after that, I think his high started to crash because out of nowhere, he just takes a seat right there on the stage, and he seems way more tired than he should be, given the fact that all he did was talking to a mic for a couple of minutes and then throw some beers at some people. Thankfully, he was able to catch his second high shortly later because here he is getting really amped up during the face-off between Ben Rothwell and Mick Terrell.
Look him up, Mick! Go on, Mickey boy! Come on, Mick!
Next, during the main event face-off between Eddie Alvarez and Jeremy Stephens, Conor starts losing his mind with excitement. Don't get me wrong here, I love the fact that as a promoter, McGregor is bringing the energy and shows enthusiasm for the fights that he and David Feldman are putting together. If we were to use Dana White as a comparison, I think it's great that Conor gets as excited as he does for these BKFC fights, whereas it's felt like Dana's been phoning it in and going through the motions for years now. And even though I'm positive that Dana parties hard when he's off the clock, I can't seem to remember a single time in history where it was noticeable that Dana was under the influence of something while on the job.
Literally on the other side, on that clip, those are all real drugs in there. There's cocaine, black tar heroin, and a bunch of other actual legit drugs that are in the clip over there.
And look, I don't want to make it seem like I'm hating on the guy or clutching my pearls over him doing coke or that he's a borderline alcoholic, because it would be hypocritical of me to do so. I drink, and I've been known to snort the devil's dandruff from time to time, but at the same time, I'm not the co-owner of a rapidly growing boxing promotion, and more importantly here, I don't walk into work drunk and high. Again, I'm not hating on the guy. I really do think it's more funny than anything else that there's so much footage footage of this guy being high on camera. Am I concerned for the guy's health and well-being? Yeah, I am. But as long as I'm making videos on this channel and until he stops walking into media events under the influences of drugs and alcohol, I'm going to keep making coked up Conor content. Anyways, check out what happened during the post-fight interview after Jeremy Stephens TKO'd Eddie Alvarez.
Who the fuck is this, baby? Yes. Yeah, let's make a date. Let's set a date. Who's gonna stop me man to man? No one's gonna stop me. David, make the date. Let's do it. I'm down for the pro, yeah? I'm down for the pro.
Let's go. Let's fucking do it. Hey, bleed, baby, just bleed.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for Jeremy Little.
One more thing. As I was walking out of the arena, Conor actually tapped me on the shoulder, and he told me to make sure that I tell everybody that he's fighting Jeremy Stephens in BKFC. That's what he said. I don't know if it's happening. I'm telling you, Conor just told me that he's fighting Jeremy Stephens in bare knuckle.
This is just crazy Adam McGregor. This guy really crashed Stephens' moment of victory without even being called out just to get up in his face and demand a fight. And yes, before you ask, I definitely think that Conor is hopped up on coke during this interaction based on how unnecessarily hyped up he is, and he even breaks out his patented coke voice. And even though I think it's legitimately hilarious that he opens up with the legendary "who the fuck is that guy" line, I also think as a promoter he was a bit out of line for pulling this stunt. Given, I'm sure that Stephens probably had plans to call out McGregor anyway because it's an opportunity to make more money than he's ever seen in his entire life. I just think that McGregor should have at the very least waited until Stephens initiated things. It really was Jeremy's moment of glory, yet Conor comes in and steals the limelight right from under his feet. And I get that you might be saying that Conor is a promoter and he's doing his job in promoting a big fight as well as creating big moments that get people talking, which I get where you're coming from. But it just seems a bit corny to me that he didn't even give Jeremy a chance to thank his coaches or maybe show respect to his opponent for a good fight or really just whatever he wanted to say before his moment in the sun got hijacked. Now, there are going to be some people right about now who are typing that Jeremy's actually been campaigning for a fight against Conor for a couple of weeks now, and things have been heating up on that end during this fight week. Stephens appeared on the Ariel Helwani show this past Wednesday and said that he wants to beat up his boss. Then ever since Jeremy made that statement, McGregor was very vocal that not only did he predict Eddie to win the fight, but it very much seemed like he was rooting for him too.
My local boy and former UFC lightweight world champion, former Bellator world champion, shut this man up over here, Jeremy Stephens.
So I don't know about you guys, but I kind of feel like promoters shouldn't be making predictions for the fights that take place within their organization, and I definitely don't think that promoters should be openly supporting one fighter over another when it comes to a specific matchup. So I don't know if Conor was just maybe salty that the guy who he was clearly rooting against won, or if it was just simply the coke getting him all riled up, but there just seems to be a weird conflict of interest in him being a promoter while also being an active fighter. But that's the thing, is Conor McGregor still an active fighter? Better yet, is he even still a fighter, period? Because over the course of the last few weeks, he's not only called out Jeremy Stephens like he did this past weekend, but he's also called out the likes of influencer dorks KSI, Logan Paul, and Jake Paul, all while still being signed to the UFC, so what the fuck is even going on here? Earlier this month, it was rumored that McGregor was in legitimate negotiations with Logan Paul's team in order to hold a boxing fight with him in India, which I'm sure we can all agree is where all the best boxing fights take place. Then surprise, surprise, this fight that nobody wanted to see fell through, and this is where two different stories start to form. On one hand, Logan claims that he just wants to focus on his WWE career, whereas Conor claims that the UFC refused to approve the fight, and this has been publicly backed up by Dana White himself. And then this past week, during the presidential inauguration, some videos came out where they showed McGregor getting into heated arguments with both the Paul brothers.
This is the real deal, yeah? In front of you, you know that. You know that, bro. So we'll look here, we'll do it.
You couldn't do what? 190, 195? I'd do it 90.
He was sick. He was sick over it, yeah. He was sick.
I'm sick.
I'm going to slap the head off the two of yous and KSI. All two.
Wow.
Yous are mixers to me. You understand that? Side jobs. A little side job.
No,
yeah.
you can't even do your main job. How you gonna do a side job?
Yeah, that's what
Okay, first things first, these videos seem staged as fuck, and you want to know why I say that? Because in spite of McGregor supposedly beefing with these guys, a video was released of all three of them hanging out on that same bus together goofing around. You literally see them taking a selfie together here and burst into laughter together. Conor's literally sitting right next to their mom here, like he clearly has a good relationship with the Paul family. With that being said though, Conor sitting next to the mom is probably the most serious part about this video. You better keep your hands where we can see him, bro. Anyways, now that his fight with Logan Paul fell through, it seems like McGregor is apparently in advanced talks to fight KSI of all people, which I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone here when I say that this is unbelievably stupid and is probably a new low when it comes to his career. Like, dude, how about you finish out the final 2 fights on your UFC contract before you start trying to set up fights with influencers and even your own employees for that matter? But if you've been paying attention the last few years, this has been Conor's song and dance to keep people talking about him and to have news stories made about him. He'll make the most ridiculous call-outs, he'll say that he's in negotiations for fights whether it's true or not, and every couple of months he'll post some sparring videos of him beating up tomato cans to convince people that he's serious about competing. But you know what? Before long, it's going to be 4 whole years since this guy has last stepped into the ring, and I really feel like this is quickly becoming a boy who cried wolf situation. He says that he's ready to fight, he calls out an opponent, and shit, maybe he'll get a fight officially booked. Then a month before the fight, he pulls out due to breaking his toe, then gets replaced by Alex Pereira, who fought with 2 broken toes. Moreover, if McGregor says that the UFC blocked him from fighting Logan Paul in India, then what makes him think that they'll let him box against KSI or Jeremy Stephens? And instead of actually fighting out the last fights on his contract, even though his broken toe is surely healed by now, he'll keep on stirring up these rumors of these fights that will never happen, then blame it on the UFC. And don't get it twisted, I agree that Conor is being iced by the UFC for reasons only Dana and Hunter Campbell know, but my point here is that he should focus on booking fights that can actually happen instead of entertaining fights that have a literal 0% chance of happening. Instead of calling out KSI, why doesn't he call out Dana for not letting him fight? At this point, I find it pretty doubtful that he ever steps into the octagon ever again, let alone a ring, but he's so in love with his identity as a badass fighter that he might not even be able to acknowledge the idea that after selling Proper 12 and becoming a co-owner of BKFC, his career as an athlete is over. And even though I will watch him fight again, whether it be in the UFC octagon or the boxing ring, I'm not gonna hold my breath on if it ever happens. Anyways, that's the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about Conor's continued shenanigans. Do you think that we'll ever see him fight again, or do you think that his career is cooked? As always, if you liked the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.